what you want, when you want it, where you want it. This is The Mesh.
Foot Candle Films. Film news and reviews from two guys who really like movies.
This episode is brought to you by the Foot Candle Film Society. For a schedule of upcoming screenings and membership information, visit the Society's website at www.footcandle.org.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Foot Candle Films here on the Mesh.tv podcast network. My name is Alan Jackson. I am a co-director and co-founder of the Foot Candle Film Society and the Foot Candle Film Festival. Take that same credit and just duplicate it, and that's what you've got for Chris Fry across the table from me, the other and my co-producer, co-director, co-founder. Chris, how you doing?
I am doing good. I'm looking forward to talking about not one and not the usual two.
Wait a minute, hold on.
But actually 3 movies.
Oh, I was going to say, that was going to be my next guess. Was it the number 3?
Yes.
It is 3 movies we're going to be discussing today. That is kind of not norm for us. That's why I'm a little more worn down right now at the moment. Maybe not as much energy because I have been having to watch more movies to do this podcast, Chris.
And I think we're going to be discussing Knock at the Cabin, Tar, and Triangle of Sadness. But I think Triangle of Sadness could actually probably be a theme for all 3 movies. Just sadness.
That's true. There is a lot of sadness in this movie. These movies. So you kind of spoiled the lead there, but yes, that's the 3 movies we will be reviewing. We will be reviewing the films Knock at the Cabin, which is the latest M. Night Shyamalan thriller. We're also going to be following that up with the film Tar, which we'll be discussing Oscar nominations a little bit later in the show, but this one did get some nominations. We'll discuss. This is the latest Kate Blanchett film. Todd Fields. Is it Todd Fields?
Todd Field. Mm-hmm.
Todd Field directing. And then we've got Triangle of Sadness, which also, surprisingly to me, was also a Best Picture nominee and a couple other things that we'll talk about award-wise. So we'll be discussing that film as well later in the show. So 3 movies, one of them new in theaters with Knock at the Cabin. The other 2 are both online viewing and Oscar-nominated films that we want to discuss. So we'll be going through all 3 of those when we get to the end of that. Our movie news is pretty much going to be Oscar nominations. You and I, Chris, have not recorded a episode since the nominations came out on January 24th. So we're going to talk through kind of some early reactions to the announcements. What did they get right? What did they maybe miss? Any surprises in the list? We're going to talk about that with those nominations. And then, as always, we end the show with a recommendation of something we think is worth checking out. Chris always has some great recommendations. He really finds just some great films to recommend us all. Me, not so much. I'm normally scraping at whatever I've got time to watch. And this week's no exception. There's a little scraping going on, but I still will have something to share with the audience as far as some recommendations go. Okay, Chris, we've got a lot to do here. Let's get right into it with our first review. The latest film by writer-director M. Night Shyamalan. It is Knock at the Cabin.
My name's Leonard. Well, it's nice to meet you.
Why are you here?
I suppose I'm here to make friends with you. And your dad's too.
Director M. Night Shyamalan adapted the 2018 novel The Cabin at the End of the World for his latest movie, starring Dave Bautista, Jonathan Groff, Rupert Grint, and Ben Aldridge. The film tells the story of a young girl and her parents who, while vacationing, are taken hostage by armed strangers who demand the family make a choice to avert the apocalypse. Shyamalan has adapted material for some of his films before. A cartoon series for The Last Airbender, an idea from Will Smith for After Earth, and most recently a graphic novel for Old. Based on your experience with Knock at the Cabin, Alan, do you think Shyamalan's films work better for you when he adapts material or writes his own material like he did for The Sixth Sense, Unbreakable, and The Happening?
That is such a mixed bag questions because I don't think there's a right answer to that. Even the examples you gave there. At first, when you were reading the films that he has adapted, I'm like, oh yeah, those are some of Shyamalan's worst movies. So no, I don't want him adapting any more films. But then you mentioned The Happening as being something he wrote originally. I'm like, well, no, that actually was his worst film. So yeah.
You
it's
not having seen Lady in the Water.
No, I have.
Okay, you have.
No, Lady in the Water is problematic. Okay.
Okay.
But I dare not, I don't think it's his worst movie.
I got you.
And I think there's at least some interesting things in there, even though the movie as a whole didn't work for me.
Sure.
But yeah, I will say, I think The Happening's his worst. And I never saw Avatar, the Last Airbender. So
I did just because I was curious.
that would make me a completist.
Gotcha.
If I saw that one. That's the only one I'm missing.
Okay.
And I'm not quite ready to sign on and say I'm an M. Night Shyamalan completist yet.
Sure.
But I generally am always excited to see his latest films. Partially, it's like driving slowly on the interstate when you know there's a wreck up ahead. You kind of want to see, does he pull this off? Does he make something entertaining, or is this something kind of to have laughs about afterwards? I know when The Happening came out and we had heard early rumblings of how bad that movie was, I actually went with a group of friends to go see it.
I was with you.
Oh yeah, that's right. We all went, a big group of us, partly because we just knew that we were just going to go and probably rip this movie to shreds. And we did.
There was more laughing in the theater than
That's
anything
right.
else. Yeah.
So it's always a question mark for me. How's a Shyamalan film going to play out? Knock at the Cabin. I'm going to say I found it to be okay. I found it to be all right. It's mid-tier Shyamalan. It is nothing that I walked away from saying that was a good movie or great movie, but I didn't walk away saying that it was an embarrassment movie either. It just kind of floated in this middle ground, and for a lot more reasons I can get into some details about it. But I wasn't disappointed, but I wasn't bowled over either. It was just right there in the middle. I think the film has an interesting premise, which again, I know he did not write the premise. Okay.
Correct. Based off a book.
The premise itself, I think, is interesting. I think the questions it starts to raise are interesting. I think the way it decides to answer those questions is not interesting. I think there's some good performances here, acting wise. I thought the directing, I will give Shyamalan this. He knows how to direct a thriller. He knows how to direct tension and building dread in situations. And I think he got that right with the film. But at the end of the day, I feel like there was really a lot here. Not a lot. So it's a very mixed bag for me, Chris. I can't come out of this either saying positive or negative. I think overall he did a acceptable film. He did a film that he should not be embarrassed about. He did a film that is not open to a lot of ridicule, I don't think. But I also don't feel like this movie does anything to raise his filmography at all. Middle ground. Where are you with this, Chris?
So it's interesting because I think I am not as high on the film as you are, but you and I are basically on the same page with the film itself. Okay. Echoing your comments, he's one director that I am interested to see what he does.
Yeah.
Because he's very genre stylized. And he's capable. He knows how to do tension, like you're saying. He knows how to shoot a film and have, try to make as interesting as he can the material that he's putting up on screen.
It's a good-looking film.
Yeah, I think that said with me, the thing with Knock at the Cabin, not the performances, it's just generally, and I think unfortunately, it is something that he set up with his filmography early that unfortunately kind of is the specter that always hangs over all his films is the twist ending. We've talked about The Sixth Sense and Unbreakable before. We've recommended them on the show, even things like Signs, The Village. He has a run of it. Now, and I guess also with like Glass, he had it. Old, I guess you could say, had a twist. So I think you're just always kind of expecting it or something, and I think that's kind of a specter that hangs over his films and can detract. But for me, with this film, it was just the premise that they show you in the preview, that is what you get. And it's not that, every movie has to be an enjoyable sit, but I didn't find it entertaining. I just found it very gloomy. and it felt like punishment as opposed to entertainment. And so for that reason, I can't really find a reason to recommend it. But it's not a poorly made film. Like, he's still a good director, and I think some of the acting we'll probably call out to say something positive. I think Dave Bautista. I'm most familiar with him as Drax in the Guardians of the Galaxy franchise, and this gives me a glimpse of him doing something, kind of being one of the main characters, playing Leonard, he's one of the people that shows up at the cabin, forcing these guys to make a choice. He, in that role, like, he's still a huge physical presence, but just he's able to convey, even though some intensity, also kind of a tenderness, And so post his Guardians of the Galaxy career, I'm interested to see what he's able to do, because obviously I think he can, bring some weight to the film, no pun intended there. But so I liked that. But I don't know. I just really had a problem with the fact that, and I think I'm not going to try to not spoil anything, although I don't really think there's much to be spoiled, but there's some flashbacks in the film. And to me, I'm not sure if it's just in the writing of the screenplay. I can imagine how it would work in a book or in a novel, but here it just felt like kind of disjointed and not really very well. It was very kind of abrupt, and it was like only there so that you could bring it back at the end of the film, which I guess in a novel, it could kind of blend more together and maybe it wouldn't seem as obvious as far as what's happening. But that was kind of distracting to me. And then kind of a throwaway, I guess, red herring is Jonathan Groff, who actually, I thought he would be, of the two parents of the kid, I mentioned there's Jonathan Groff, and then there's Ben Aldridge, who I wasn't really that familiar with.
Yeah,
he was in a comedy from last year called Bros, which I didn't see, but I mean I was familiar with the fact that he was in it. I would have thought Jonathan Groff may have been like the more prominent parent, but actually Ben Aldridge, I felt like he was kind of a more stronger role. Just they gave him a lot more dialogue. He was really intense. But Jonathan Groff's character has a concussion, so I guess he's kind of sidelined a little bit. But there was kind of a red herring with his character about a flash of light that he sees, and I thought that was, I don't know, just the flashbacks and some of the things they're trying to make you think the movie's more interesting than it really is, and that detracted for me. But I feel bad for Shyamalan because it's an expectation, unfortunately, that he's saddled with.
I actually am going to give that as positive to the film, that I think M. Night avoids what I think everybody expects. And I even had to kind of remind myself getting to the end. I'm like, Alan, don't expect there to be a twist, because that's the shame of it. That's why I think these movies sometimes don't work for audiences as much, is because everybody goes in expecting this twist, and either the twist is so artificial or it's so tacked on, or you just feel it's forced because he's having to play that role. I'll just say this. I mean, I think we're okay to say without it coming too spoilery. This film has a very un-Shyamalan ending, and that you could take that as good or bad. I think some people will come away from the ending, very disappointed because it's not a typical Shyamalan ending. Others will be relieved that it's not. I was kind of relieved, although I will admit the ending was kind of limp. It was it did not go as far as I think. I know he was trying to make it a very restrained ending and a very kind of ambiguous, which we've talked about before. We're okay with ambiguous endings, but I think this just limped to its ending too much. And I think where it was meaning to build a lot of emotion in that last 15, 20 minutes, it just didn't. It hadn't built it up by that point. It had not earned what I think he was trying to do by the end of this film.
Well, and I felt like as he was wrapping the film up, the reason it did kind of limp towards its ending is because it wasn't offering you anything interesting. And when it tried to make it interesting by giving reasoning for some of the four individuals that show up and threaten this couple with their child, it just really seemed like it was reaching to make you be like, kind of like he was reaching for not a twist, but reaching for some a puzzle piece to fall into place. And you're like, really? That's what you're doing?
Yeah.
And so it just seemed
the thing
sad.
is, I love some of the questions that the film starts to address. I'm disappointed it doesn't do anything with it. There's a question of what role social media and internet chats and all played in these four characters, which I'm like, oh, okay, that's kind of interesting. It's kind of tying in a very culturally relevant
Chat
topic.
room
I'm
or a
like,
cult or
yeah,
something
I'm
like
like,
that,
okay, let's
sure.
dig into that, and they don't really do it.
Right.
There's another element of I'm just going to say mistaken identity with one of the characters and a question about the true identity of this person and the relationship. And it's like, well, you didn't really do anything with it.
No.
So it's like, okay, so why, it was a cool idea and it was something that kind of dropped in the movie. I'm like, ooh, okay, this just made this even a little bit more interesting. It's like, and they did nothing with it. So it's like some really great ideas, some really interesting concept. I don't know how much to equate to the book versus
Right.
the movie, which is again, so kind of I don't know where to give the credit or where to place the blame on this. I mean,
See,
I
I
have not read the
don't,
book.
Yeah, I haven't read the book, but I was curious because I had seen some people that were big fans of the book kind of shouting about how the movie was changed.
Okay.
Ultimately, yeah, it is changed. The ending is different, but I think this, if you could say, the spirit of the book is still there.
Okay.
So I don't know. Yeah. It's,
Well, again, I like basing a movie just on the movie. I'm not one
Sure.
to sit there and say, well, the book was better or worse or whatever.
Got you.
It is what it is, and but I don't know where to place blame. Is it that Shyamalan was truly trying to adapt this book, and one to kind of the book did not really dig too deep into a lot of these themes, or were they themes that were being dropped in by Shyamalan to try to make it his own beast, and he just didn't really know how to carry it through all the way? I don't know. I love a good thriller.
Sure.
I do think this movie was thrilling. I unlike you, I didn't find myself bored. I just walked away more blasé about the whole thing.
From the moment, the first visitor, and I'm not ruining anything because they show it in the trailer, puts a bag over his head.
Yeah.
I kind of felt like I knew how the next hour of the film was going to go, and
you were kind of right. Again, you
And
were
that was
mostly
just
right.
disappointing. And there again, maybe chalk it up to me being a movie critic and me seeing too many movies. So
Yeah, there could be some
and
of
so
that.
it's like I can predict how
Look,
I think things are
I
gonna go.
like a good thriller, especially a single setting thriller where it's like you get a little sense of claustrophobia or a little sense of space around you. I like the fact that, 80, 90% of this film is inside the cabin.
It would have been a good COVID movie. I don't know when they shot it. But
I
yeah.
like everything that was going on with this movie. Sure. I just, I was just more walked away and it's not even let down. It was just walked away okay, shrugging the shoulders. Got it. That was it. And it could have been much, much better with a little more impactful ending, or at least warranted the building up of what we're getting to the ending. I will just say this. There are a couple of, I'm trying to do this without giving away too many things plot-wise at the end.
I've got something, since I've been slamming on it, I have a positive point that I'll make,
all
but
right.
you go ahead if you know.
Well, it's just, and this is a negative,
oh, okay.
but I'll let you do
Well,
the
then I'll end
positive.
on a positive. Yeah.
The whole crux of this film, the story, is that these three individuals, the couple you described already, Jonathan Groff, and then the other actor, Ben Aldridge, and their adopted daughter, Wynn. The three of them are forced to make a decision. And it's in a passing comment why the three of them are the ones that have to make the decision. So passing, almost like it just got rammed into the script at the last minute. Because like, oh yeah, we really kind of need to give the audience maybe some little insight as to why. But it was just so passing, and I still end up at the end of the movie, I'm like, I didn't need it explained to me. I don't need you to lay out for me exactly why this trio is the one in question that we're dealing with. But I needed a little bit more than what I got, because
Okay.
it just felt like it was the audience doesn't need to know why it's these three. They just got to trust us. And I'm sorry, but you can't. It doesn't build enough of the film could have been so much more impactful and emotional by the end if we had a little more stake into why these characters are facing the situation they're facing, instead of just leaving it up to feeling like it's random or feeling like, I don't know. That was a problem for me with the film.
I understand. And there were little things like that kind of nagged at me for the film. I will say, this is a positive, ending on a positive. We both talked about how we feel like Shyamalan's an interesting director. He's very capable. He makes interesting choices. I am looking forward to seeing what he'll do next. Something else I admire about him is he's a Hollywood survivor. He managed to keep making films apparently the way he wants to make them. He's had misfires. We've talked about them. Old wasn't that, but critically, Old was kind of here, there, Lady in the Water, The Happening, but yet he's continuously able to continue making movies. He's already got another one planned for 2024. I don't think it has a title yet, but I admire that about him. And with this movie, specifically the way he uses Boogie Shoes towards the song Boogie Shoes at the end of the film, I was like, seriously? And I rolled my eyes, but then he kind of plays with it a little bit because he's like, no. And you think, oh, okay, no. And then he's like, no, this is what I want to do. This is a point I'm making. This is my film. I am the director. Here you go. And I'm like, okay. So it's like he makes choices that I feel like, and he's clearly making them. And he's like, this is what I want to do. This is my movie. Love it or hate it. This is what I want to do. And I'm like, good for you. And he's still able to make movies. So all that said, no, didn't really care for Knock at the Cabin. But am I interested to see his next film that in theory is coming out in 2024? Yes. And I'm always hoping for another film like Unbreakable or Sixth Sense. Or you know what? I actually liked Split, which is one of his more recent ones.
Split.
I actually liked that one.
Split was okay.
And so I think he's got another really good film in him. He's got obviously more films in him, and I'm always holding out hope for another one that I liked as much as those others. So.
All right. Well, I am a little more positive on it. I'm not going to say I'm positive on Knock at the Cabin. Again, I walked out of the theater. I saw this last night. And I remember just walking out of the theater. I'm like, okay, got it. It was all right. I didn't feel like it was a waste of my time, but I also didn't feel like I got anything out of it at the end of the day.
Gotcha.
It is a well-shot, well-directed thriller that I just felt like didn't really have anything to say at the end of the day.
Fair enough.
And that's a shame, because it could have been. The premise was there. It was, and maybe the book did, but the premise was there. It was all ready for this to be a impactful movie to really make you, walk away with something, and it just didn't. So, but I mean, look, Dave Bautista, I thought was really good.
Yes,
I thought performances in general were really good.
Sure.
So yeah, I'm gonna. If you had to force my hand, sure, I'll come out on the slightly tipping positive side, but very, very slightly.
Fair enough.
Very, very slightly. I will give it one extra point before we move on.
Okay.
I do think it was the best, and I use the word best lightly, meaning it's the least worst, M. Night Shyamalan cameo in his own film.
Okay. Yes. Okay. So yes,
Like least worst.
No, but I hear what you're saying, and I would agree because it was harmless. It wasn't very
It didn't
showy
impact
thing.
it didn't impact
Correct.
the plot.
I would agree that he's backed off on doing a really ridiculous one.
Don't make
Yes.
himself the hero. Don't make himself a critical character. Don't give him the most dramatic scenes in the film.
Right.
This was a
very
truly
background
look.
performance.
I'm just doing something funny as a cameo.
Right.
And that's it. And it was relatively short and painless, and
Yeah.
we're good. So
Agreed.
thank you, M. Night.
Yes,
for doing that.
sometime we'll have to do a ranking of the M. Night Shyamalan cameos in his films.
A
We're really
ranking of the cameos.
instead of a news item,
Yeah.
we'll just do the ranking of his cameos in his films.
Sure, yeah. Yeah, that's true. I can actually think of some of them
Yeah.
offhand. All right. So that is Knock at the Cabin. We're split on it. Chris is leaning negative. I'm leaning slight positive. It's a mid-tier Shyamalan for me. If you like his films and you like his style, I think you'll find something of interest with it. If you're not a fan of his movies or have generally disliked his movies, I don't think there's anything here that's going to win you over. I think you're going to walk away still disappointed or frustrated. So I'll let you, the audience, make your decision given that information. So, all right, let's move on to our next film. We got two. We're going to do kind of a little shorter discussions on these because these have been out for a little while. They're both Best Picture nominees. So, I mean, there's at least got that going for them both. Let's start with the first one, Todd Field and his film, Tar.
You want to dance the mask, you must service the composer.
If you're here, then you already know who she is. Lydia Tarr is many things. As a conductor, Tarr began her career with the Cleveland Orchestra, Chicago Symphony Orchestra, the Boston Symphony Orchestra, until she at last arrived here at our own New York Philharmonic. In 2013, Berlin elected Tarr as its principal conductor, and she's remained there ever since. Lydia Tarr has also written music for the stage and screen. She is one of only 15 EGOT.
With the film Tar, we have Kate Blanchett starring as Lydia Tarr, considered one of the greatest living composer-conductors, the very first female director of a major German orchestra, and the film centers on her in her place in the world of Western classical music. That may sound like we're looking at a biopic of someone that's maybe based on a real person, a female composer or a conductor. Well, yes and no. We do get some of that, but we're watching Lydia Tarr in this film from a somewhat specific point in her career, learning about her as we go along through this film, learning about her relationships with the people around her, the people who love her, the people who hate her, and all sides of that, building to this idea of, I guess it's okay for me to say this in a synopsis of the film. I mean, it does touch on this idea of someone being judged in their profession, maybe the concept of, quote, cancel culture, if you want to even dip into that. But it is her being viewed by people for her actions and behaviors in her relationships with people. Chris, we have a film here. Todd Field, I know, has done some films. I'm not as versed in his filmography as maybe you are.
I've seen his other two. Yeah.
Yeah. And I have not. So this was kind of a little bit of an introduction to him as a filmmaker for me.
Okay.
With this film, we've already seen all the acclaims that Kate Blanchett has gathered for her performance. We also know this film is nominated for Best Picture. I think is Todd Field nominated for Best Director?
Best Director and Best Original Screenplay.
Original Screenplay. A lot of accolades out there, Chris. A lot of critics love this film. I want to only hear from one critic right now, and that's a Mr. Chris Fry. What did you think of Todd Field's Tar?
So I saw this film after it had gotten lots and lots of buzz. I did see it in the theater when it was making the rounds, and I went into it expecting a larger-than-life Kate Blanchett performance that would probably be nominated for Oscars. Sure enough, what did I get? I got a Kate Blanchett performance that was larger than life and was nominated for an Oscar. What I didn't see, and what apparently others saw, was a film that deserved a nomination for Best Picture, Best Director, and Best Original Screenplay. The film was not bad. I'm not saying it's bad. I just didn't see much to hold on to or to be interested in for a film that ran 2 hours and 38 minutes. Kate Blanchett did an amazing job portraying an unlikable person doing unlikable things. But and she made it interesting to watch, but just barely, because she was on the screen. She did have to, the screen time, she's the main, all that. So she held my attention, but it was just very, observational. It's very slow. And I can tell she's a dynamic person. She commands attention. She's very intense, but at the end of the day, I came away just kind of like, okay, now I've seen this Tar. I can check it off the list of things I needed to see before the end of the year. But I just wasn't, I don't know, just didn't leave that much there for me. What was your take on it?
Oh, Chris. No, I'm not going to berate you on this. I did really, really enjoy this film. Found a lot to like. And I think part of it has to do with, and this is not fair for how you rate a film, but we talked about the trailer of this film, I think, months ago when the trailer was released. Because I remember watching it.
Okay.
And I will tell you, I think the marketing on this film was off. The trailer gave off an impression of it being a very, very avant-garde. I almost got what was the Stanley Eyes Wide Shut type of feel? Just a very
Yes.
menacing and almost like a very oppressive film.
Yeah.
And it's not. Okay, I'll just go ahead and say that. I was actually generally surprised with how
Well, and I think that
standard the film was, how routine it was.
And I think that there again, it's misconception for me based on trailer and based on a lot of things. I thought it was going to be a lot more intense with things driving it. And then when it wasn't, it's my fault. Left me artificially bored because it didn't have a lot. I mean, she goes to rehearsal. She comes back from rehearsal. She goes to rehearsal. She's shown sitting at a piano trying to write. Okay. And there's just not a lot there to engage me.
Well, I admit, I know there were some times and moments where they tried to play with some building tension, and there's some moments that are meant to keep you a little uneasy and unsure what's going on. But in general, the film is really an exploration of just this woman and the point in her career and the interactions that she has or the effect she has on the people around her. And from that perspective, I really liked what I saw. I mean, yes, Cate Blanchett's performance is very good. It's actually a less showy role than I expect it to be as well, too.
Because you hear that she plays this unlikable person. You hear that it's this really strong performance. You're like, oh, okay, she's going to be like a Daniel Plainview in There Will Be Blood.
Right.
You know,
And
that
she's
Daniel
not.
Day-Lewis. And she's not.
She has a couple moments where she gets to cut loose and all, but for the most part, it's boiling under the surface,
Right.
and it's real. I mean, actually, I felt it was a lot more real. Actually, to the point, Chris, where you kind of described it as you're watching a unlikable person. I'm like, well, by 2/3 of the movie in, I mean, yeah, there's some traits about her that I could see could rub people the wrong way, and I think there's some things that probably got her in trouble with some actions she took. But I kind of understood her. I kind of like at least see something in her. I mean, there's enough left. Again, I don't want to spoil anything. There's enough left out there to make you even question, just like you would any other celebrity you hear, their actions, whether or not the actions and the reactions they got to those reactions were really warranted or not. Okay. Just enough.
Yeah, there's
just enough
there's
of
a
that.
scene
Yeah.
where she is talking to a class,
Yes.
and she is very forceful in that scene.
Mm-hmm.
But what happens is that scene, as happens a lot of times, like you're saying with social media and cancel culture, is recorded.
Yeah.
And that comes back to kind of haunt her.
Well, and the recording was
edited.
and
Right.
not accurate and not fair. So it brings up some good questions. I mean, I think it's an interesting discussion point because I actually found myself afterwards saying, okay, well, what did she really do bad? Hey, there are some things. Absolutely. I mean, I'm not saying that, the film's trying to portray her as an angel, but did it warrant what she got? I don't know. I mean, and that's a question I think we ask ourselves in our society in general, is like when somebody does something that crosses a line in today's society and there are repercussions for it. Was it warranted? Was it fair? Was it right? And I think we're meant to ask these questions about Lydia Tarr as well. I felt that way anyway at the end of the film. Maybe that just shows more about my personality than anything, but I did wonder at the end. And I love the film that kind of lets you ask those questions. And I think, yes, it is long. It is slow. I mean, the whole first almost 10, 15 minutes of this film is just her on stage with somebody being interviewed.
Well, and
in a long conversation. But I found it riveting. I found it very interesting because, again, it's like I was in the mindset of, I want to know this person now. Cate Blanchett has made it in the first few minutes of this film. I already want to know about this character. So inform me about this character, and her actions and words, no matter how routine they may be, gave me what I needed to know about her.
So I will say the way they gave character information in this film, the way Todd Field structured it, yeah, maybe the entire film didn't work for me, but I do admire the formal switch ups that he did. The film starts, you have a little bit of like actual on-screen action, but then you see all these credits for the film, and that's usually something you see at the end. And you hear the interview going on, but you see just like, the credits that you'd normally see at the end of the film.
It's all the credits.
You see at the beginning.
Yeah.
So that was a formal stylistic choice that's kind of going against what a lot of the film's talking about, is this one person conducting an orchestra, but yet all the focus is on them. This is Todd Field directing a movie, but he's putting all the focus on everybody involved in making the film.
Which I loved.
Which I did too. So I like that show. And then instead of doling out this information all throughout the film about how awesome she is, no, you get it all up front. You get this staged fake, but interview type thing with, where she's up on stage and it's this very formalized thing. But I thought it was good. It was well handled. It seemed real. And you get little cuts to like the assistant sitting there mouthing the words that she's saying because she already knows how rehearsed it is. So it was enough twist on things that could have been done differently that I did like that. I guess the problem was after it got away from that and then kind of fell into more of a routine of, kind of like a slice of life of this is a famous conductor going about the routine who's kind of a jerk. And you're like, okay, but to me that wasn't. Now, and then I will give, which a lot of people do give credit for, which we won't give anything away, but the ending of the film was interesting.
The ending of this film was awesome. I'll just go ahead and tell you, totally unprepared for it, totally unexpected for me.
Okay.
And again, we will not spoil it, but
No. I had it semi-spoiled for me, so I don't want to do that
That's a
to
shame.
the listeners.
The film leads you down a path of seeing where her career takes her, and it's very interesting to see. It plays completely against the expectation of what you think is going to be happening. I loved it, but it also just put a wonderful capstone on the whole film. To take a film for 2 hours and 15 minutes with little to no humor.
Yeah.
And then to give us an ending that honestly is funny in a tragic way. And it completely upends, to me, the film's tone to some degree, but in a really good way. Like I walked away from the movie saying, okay, yeah, that's the way you end a movie like that. If you're going to make us watch this more tedious interactions and life of this person, but then you build it to an ending like this, I'm like, hey, you got me. Yeah, I'm on board. So I found the ending really rewarding and funny and totally playing with this idea of I know what kind of movie I just made. And yeah, this is the way this movie is going to end because this is how sometimes these stories end. And I want to have fun with this. So it's great.
Well, I think, I feel like the director Todd Field was having fun with the ending. Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Because I think there are stories of people we could see having that same ending for them. So anyway, yeah, man, it's a shame we're not spoiling this because that's fun to talk about. But it's not worth doing a whole spoiler review just for that.
Sure.
So we'll table it for now. I was a big fan of this film. I was surprised how much I did enjoy it because I honestly was not looking forward to watching this. This is one of those Best Picture nominees. I'm like, I feel like I'm having to do having to eat my greens. I got to eat my vegetables and let's watch the movie.
Sure.
It actually came out of it really, really rewarded more than I expected.
Tell you what, listeners, we have one more review to go, but I say after we do our Oscar talk in the news section, we're going to do a spoiler mentioning of all three movies because I think there are aspects of all three movies. We can just hit the spoilers of all three real quick.
Very quick.
Very quick. Yeah.
Very
So
short,
we'll give a little bit of a
quick.
knock at the cabin. I'll tell you a little bit about how the ending could have been different that matches the book. We'll talk a little bit about the ending of Tar, and then we'll talk a little bit about the very ending of Triangle of Sadness. So if you're interested in hearing kind of the spoiler talk of what we thought about it, stay tuned after the Oscar talk. So.
All right. Well, I'll tell you what we're going to do. Let's go ahead and hit our third film really quick. Then we are going to do some Oscar talk. I know we probably spent a little more time on Knock on the Cabin than we expected. But that's okay. Shyamalan kind of demands that sometimes.
There you go.
Here we go. The latest film from director Ruben Östlund, and it is Triangle of Sadness.
So, is this runway casting for a grumpy brand or a smiley brand?
So it's a grumpy brand, yeah?
Congratulations! Show me that Balenciaga look. Suddenly I'm dressed in something way less expensive. It's H&M! Yay! Balenciaga! And H&M! Balenciaga! And H&M!
2022 had at least two other films that focused on the super rich being super short-sighted. The ones that I'm aware of are the suspense comedic thriller The Menu, which we reviewed here on the show, and a comedic mystery, Glass Onion, which we did not review here on the show. Director Ruben Östlund's Triangle of Sadness take has told in 3 parts. There's a fashion show runway, then there's a cruise ship, and then there's some time spent on an island. Each distinct part had something that made it worth watching for me. The fashion show had a model interview portion and a power dynamic over a dinner conversation that I found awesome. The cruise ship, any scene with Woody Harrelson's captain, I thought was amazing. And then on the island, the power dynamic flip kept me engaged and made for a great ending. Did any of Triangle of Sadness resonate for you, Alan, or did it leave you feeling as nauseated as the characters during the film's dining sequence?
Oh, that dining sequence. Oh, boy.
Which, if you know anything about this film, you know that there's a lot of vomiting going on.
A lot of vomiting. A lot of vomiting going on.
Yeah.
Look, I appreciate this film. I get it. I understand what is happening. I understand why it's happening. I understand the choices that are being made. The film was more of a chore for me, which I did not care for.
Got you.
The chore side of it. Yes, all the individual elements you just described are great. I do love the opening dinner sequence between the couple and kind of that power dynamic discussion between them. I loved it. The talk of money and talk of finances between a relationship. Yeah, it was very, very interesting. I did love Woody Harrelson as the captain of the ship. In any scene he was in, I'm a fan of. And I thought the ending portion of the film was a really sharp departure that I appreciated, and I understood the reasoning for it. All this, though, did not make this film any less of what I felt like was still that chore to watch. Mainly because I get it. I get what the theme of the film is. I get what the overall talk of the film is. And especially on the cruise boat, I felt like, okay, I've seen this better in my mind. I've seen this theme played out better. I've seen this kind of commentary played out better. And so I just felt like that middle section just kind of wore me down to where when I got to the final section, I was already kind of at a weakened level, a weakened state of watching.
Sure.
So it did not have the impact on me that I'm sure it probably did for you. It was, look, there's a lot of good here. It was a tough watch for me. Maybe it's the combination of the vomit. Maybe and there was a lot of it. I'm not underplaying this. There was a lot of vomit. Maybe that whole ship dinner sequence and the post of it just was kind of grueling. The fact is, you're right. We have seen other movies this year dealing with kind of class structure and the haves and haves not. And I'm like, okay, yeah, maybe if I'd seen this film before I saw other films that dealt with this subject matter, I'd have a greater appreciation for it. But after seeing other ones, I'm like, yeah, well, there was a part in the menu that I liked better than this, the way that did it. There's a part in this film I like better than this. It was a lot, Chris. There was a lot going on in this film, a lot to kind of process.
Sure, I understand. And I think for me, you and I are kind of flip-flopped on Triangle of Sadness and Tar, because for me, I went into it with no expectation, and not saying you did, but I'm just saying I had no expectation for it. And coming off having seen something like The Menu, which I thought had potential, but then just really kind of fell short of meeting its potential. And I liked Triangle of Sadness because I felt like it was hitting the same notes of, talking about class, but it was doing it in a way that I found funny in different ways, because those 3 settings it was like funny. Yeah. I mean, I'll agree. The second part on the boat, even though I loved everything Woody Harrelson was in, it did run a little long but this movie is 2 hours and 27 minutes as opposed to Tar that was 238. I was much more engaged in Triangle of Sadness, maybe because it was broken up in 3 parts, and maybe because the power dynamic kept getting shifted around. It was celebrity and models, and then all of a sudden it was, nope, just rich people. Models don't have any power anymore. And then you get to the island and it's like, nope,
very different. It's
people who know how to survive over the rich people and over the models. So, and I don't know. I found it more rewarding, and I think about it more than I did other films like The Menu or Tar. It's interesting. This film is up for 3 awards as opposed to the 4 that Tar's up for. So this didn't get any acting, but it's up for original screenplay, director, and best picture, which that to me is surprising.
And I can understand the acting side not getting a lot of accolades on the acting side because it is a big ensemble.
It's a big cast.
Big cast.
Right.
And even though there's chopped into 3 parts, the 3 parts all kind of tend to focus on different characters than the other parts did.
True.
And I don't think this is a film about the acting. I mean, I think it's really, it's all driven on story.
Sure.
And it's all driven on
Themes of what it's trying to
than it is really rising up a particular performance as being a stellar knockout performance on this. So I wasn't surprised. Honestly, too, I think the least impressive performances were the 2 people we probably spent the most time with, I thought, which were the couple you mentioned.
The model couple.
The model couple.
Sure.
I thought they were the least interesting performances, and they were the closest thing we had to a characters we followed throughout all 3 parts.
Yes.
Other people had their moments to shine, and they were great when they did them. But yeah, I can't really walk away from this saying, the acting was just amazing, because that wasn't really what the appeal for the film was.
Have you seen,
look, maybe this is a film I've just got to watch at a different time. I've got to watch it in a different
give
mindset.
it space. I'm curious. I've seen the director Ruben Östlund's other films, The Square and Force Majeure. Have you seen either one?
I've seen Force Majeure.
Okay, you've seen Force Majeure.
I saw
Okay.
Force Majeure.
Okay.
Which I liked because it was on one particular theme that I could really grab a hold of, and it was a very subdued, it had a moment of comedy, a moment of some hilarity to it, couched in a much, much more dramatic situation.
Sure.
And that worked for me. This film, I think, took that same kind of format and just blew it up. And just like, okay, yeah, yes, there's going to be comedy, and yes, there's going to be drama, and we're just going to just expand everything. And let's not just cover one kind of thematic idea. Let's cover 2 or 3 kind of couched under a bigger umbrella of themes. And it was a lot. That's the best I could say of it. It was just a lot.
We're not going to spoil it,
Yeah.
but I do want to, because we'll touch on that after. I said we're going to do like short spoiler talk about each of the films we reviewed on this show. What or did not like the ending, and how did that affect your overall opinion of the film? Without spoiling it, we'll get to that later. But
I liked it.
not necessarily the last shot, but like what happens in the final.
I liked it.
Okay.
Yes. I thought it was a good ending.
Okay.
I will give it that. And again, I'm not saying the movie's bad. I'm just saying
Sure.
it's just a lot. I can't imagine showing this to an audience and expecting a majority of the people to really feel rewarded by it.
Oh, it's not there to be.
Yeah.
It's there to provoke. I mean, just when I'd heard about the vomiting in this film, I was like, oh yeah, I remember The Meaning of Life by Monty Python, where the gentleman goes in there and like he's had a huge meal and he eats a little wafer and then he vomits. So I thought that's kind of what I was getting into. Imagine that scene in The Meaning of Life being multiplied and extended. But I was still able to find, even though it was very gross out humor, I was still able to find something funny about it. But it does try to
Look, it intentionally goes over the top.
Oh,
And
yeah.
I get it. And that sequence is drawn out really long.
But that doesn't mean it was entertaining for you.
No.
Right.
No,
was
it
for
was
me,
drawn
but
out.
I
It
can see
was,
that.
I think, just wallowing in
Misery.
the
and-
depravity of it
right,
all.
Sure.
And there's a couple scenes where you have some elderly people. Granted, yes, and we're meant to feel like they're overprivileged, and but half naked, sliding across the floor in a pile of feces, and
Right.
it's like, okay, I get it. I get what you're saying. I totally am on board with what you're saying.
Just a little
but,
too heavy-handed
man,
for you.
Just
Gotcha.
a bit much. It was
Okay.
it was grueling. Grueling was the word for it, I think. And so I think it just wiped me out in that middle section where I'm like, by the time we got to the 3rd section, I'm like, all right, just whatever. Let's
Just wrap this
let's
up.
just keep going, please. Let's get to the end of this
Sure.
thing.
I got
So
you.
anyway, for what it's worth, no, I was not as big a fan of this film. Although I will say, I think it's an interesting watch. I'm not going to dissuade anybody from watching it if they have an interest in seeing it, especially if you saw Force Majeure or his other films and you like anything he's doing. Yeah, by all means, there's going to be stuff here you're going to really appreciate. It's a chore of a film to watch. It's overpowering at times, especially in that middle section. And it just, I don't know. Yeah, it was a tough one for me.
I got you.
Yeah. Not on my best of list of the year. I'll just say that much.
Fair enough.
I'm kind of curious when we get to the Best Picture nominees. I'm curious where you think this falls in the grand scheme of things. You personally.
Sure.
This thing will not win Best Picture. It's not going to win.
I don't think so.
No.
But
I'm impressed that it's in the field of 10 for the Best Picture nominees right now. So
sure.
That is Triangle of Sadness by director Ruben Östlund. We're a split on this as well. So we kind of flip-flopped our Tar impressions a little bit
Sure.
on this film. So overall, all three movies, if you average them all out, we are basically just like right in the middle.
I believe so.
On all three. Slightly positive, slightly negative, kind of flip-flop both sides. I think the most positive one you've been on has been Triangle of Sadness.
Yes.
Of all three. You are actually
Yes.
genuinely positive on this film.
Yes.
I'm not genuinely negative of any of them. I probably of the three, my least favorite, if you can say that, is Triangle of Sadness.
See, there you go.
So yeah, there we go.
I think
All
we're close to the same on Knock at the Cabin, and the other two were like balancing each other
Yeah,
out.
that's interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
So that's been our three reviews. Chris, let's take a really quick break. When we come back, we are going to discuss the Oscar nominations for 2023 and also our recommendations for films to check out in your free time. So you're listening to Foot Candle Films here on themesh.tv. We will be right back.
This podcast is sponsored by Jackson Creative, a custom communication agency located in downtown Hickory, North Carolina, specializing in online content creation. To learn more, visit thejacksoncreative.com. Jackson Creative, we tell your story.
Welcome back to Foot Candle Films here on the Mesh.tv podcast network. My name is Alan Jackson. Chris Fry with me as well. We just finished our reviews of Knock at the Cabin.
Yes.
Not Knock in the Cabin.
No, knock at
Not
the
Knock
cabin.
on the Cabin.
And not knock at the cabin door. Just knock at the cabin.
Just Knock at the Cabin. Knock at the Cabin, Tar, and Triangle of Sadness, where we averaged out a complete neutral vote for all three films combined. But let's move on to our award discussion. Academy Awards are coming up. The nominations for this year's Academy Awards were announced on January 24th. We've had discussions internally here, Chris, about these, but we have not actually sat in front of a microphone to talk about them. So I thought it'd be good for us to just spend a few minutes and talk about some of the bigger outcomes of these nominations, hit a couple of the big categories that we always look towards, and then just overall takes away surprises or intrigue in this year's nominations. So let's start with the big category, the Best Picture. This is always the one that, we kind of hang our hats on at the end of the year. How many nominees were there going to be? Was Top Gun Maverick going to get nominated for Best Picture? How far were they going to go with Everything Everywhere All at Once? A lot of questions we had going in. Here are the 10 nominees for Best Picture. We have the Netflix original film, All Quiet on the Western Front, which I did catch up with. by the way.
Good.
Yep. Avatar, The Way of Water, which we spoke about on our last podcast.
Yes.
The Banshees of Inisherin, which we have reviewed. Elvis, we reviewed. Everything Everywhere All at Once, which I saw again for my second time the other day.
Okay.
Different take
Different
on it.
take, huh?
A little bit.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll come back around to that sometime.
All right.
The Fablemans, that's the Spielberg film. Tar, which we just mentioned. Top Gun Maverick did get nominated for Best Picture. Triangle of Sadness, which we also just discussed. And then Women Talking, which I'll go ahead and say Women Talking is the only film on this list I haven't seen.
Okay.
So with that, Chris,
He sighs.
which one was your biggest surprise? And is there a film you're disappointed did not get the Best Picture nomination?
Well, okay. When we're I'm surprised that Avatar and Top Gun make it on a list, but when you're trying to do 10 films and I feel like sometimes pandering like, oh, it's the, for lack of better, Black Panther, it's not a bad movie. Is it an Oscar-worthy Best Picture movie? Not in my opinion. But I call this kind of like the Black Panther. They're pandering. This is like the pandering choices to put on Best Picture to keep like a lot of people interested. It's like, oh, Top Gun Maverick. It's like, it's pandering to Hollywood and like big budget films. I feel like, I mean, it's my opinion. So Avatar and Top Gun Maverick, I don't feel like either one deserves to be there, but they're coming up with 10 nominees. And I feel like those are pandering choices.
I'm with you on Avatar. Avatar's pandering. Avatar, I still, any critics I see that are giving it good reviews is for a technical prowess. And yes, technically, sure, it's really well done. But yeah, it's not a overall Best Picture nominee for me at all.
Let me put it this
Not
way.
at all.
Okay, so if me saying the things about like, the pandering thing, okay, or it's all the other nominees I look at, all of them, and I say, yeah, I think there are several things that make this Best Picture worthy. I don't know of anything in Avatar or Top Gun Maverick that make it Best Picture worthy. All the other films, I don't know which one will win, but they just have several things going for them.
Well, I will disagree on Top Gun Maverick. It is not going to win Best Picture. It is not the Best Picture of the year.
I hope not.
However, I do think you have to factor in, the impact on the audience that a film can have too. I feel like, and I do feel like of all the films right now, that is the one film that did create a outpouring of audience reaction to the film. It reached the broadest audience. It pleased the most people that saw it from a percentage wise, if you wanted to get statistical with it.
So it's if we're going to give Best Picture to the one that made the most money, then okay.
Well, no, I'm not saying that. It has to be a combination of all that. I mean, It can't just be the biggest grossing, because then Avatar would be number one, and I don't want that to happen. That's not warranted.
Sure.
But Top Gun Maverick, I did think pulled off an impressive feat of taking what could have been a very limp, lukewarm sequel and made a crowd-pleasing, also technically proficient film. Yes. Was the story all that? No. Was the acting anything? No, not really. But technically speaking, it was a really, really well-made film, and it hit that sweet spot of audience engagement. Crowds loved it, and critics, even if they didn't love the film, were still giving it positive feedback, because it's like they see the merit that was there on screen. So I'm okay with it being nominated. I mean, it was not going to win, but I was good with it being nominated. Avatar is the one I'm going to say, nope, that did not need to be there.
Got you.
It's kind of like the Lord of the Rings trilogy, the Peter Jackson. I think all three of those films got nominated for Best Picture. But you kind of wonder, like, okay, The Two Towers, did it really need to be nominated? I mean, we got it with Fellowship of the Ring, and it won it for Return of the King. But I'm like, Avatar, man, Avatar's still not at that level and did not need to be in this 10.
Surprises for me. I knew Top Gun was going to be nominated for Best Picture. I knew it was because of everything you said about the audience reaction, the money it made, and all, And I think the thing is, it didn't stink. So, and a lot of people, including me, thought it was going to be terrible. Mm-hmm. And I can't say it's terrible. It's not. It's it's decent. Avatar, I was surprised, but 10 films, whatever. Women Talking, I've seen it. I liked it. And it's such a small type film that I'm surprised it doesn't, I don't think it stands a chance of getting Best Picture, but I was surprised.
So what's your prediction? If you had to guess right now, what Best Picture, we're not going to do this for all the categories, because I just want to hit a couple categories, but Best Picture, not what Chris Fry wants to win, but what do you think is going to win?
It's really hard to say, because I feel like it's I feel like it's going to be Everything Everywhere All at Once. But I don't know, because it's one of those things where I feel like the tide leading up to the awards, they're March 12th. We're just now in February. Come late February, because of how buzz comes and goes and all that kind of stuff, I feel like buzz could suddenly surge for something like The Fabelmans. And, Steven Spielberg, don't ever count him out, So I could see that.
That's my prediction.
I
think The Fabelmans will win it.
Well, the thing is, accessibility-wise, it's Fabelmans. Because if you're looking at Best Picture for broad appeal and all that kind of stuff, you would say, yeah, it's going to be a Spielberg.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Everything Everywhere All at Once has a lot of nominations, but a lot of times that can be a curse. Then you walk away with like one win, even though you have.
Is that the film you would want to see win? If it was up to you, is that the film you'd want to see win?
I don't know. I really don't know, because I don't think it's a perfect film. I think I guess if I could choose Everywhere over Fabelmans, I would choose Everywhere just because it is so different.
Yeah,
it is so different, and I really applaud them, the approach of literally throwing everything on the screen to see what sticks, Yeah. And I really like the innovate and the so I guess if I could choose, I would probably say that. But I think there's so many other ones in the category. All Quiet on the Western Front, that's one of them. Women Talking, that's they're just it's really hard to say, but box office wise and audience pleasing wise, I think probably the Fabelmans. But if I could choose,
not box office wise, it didn't make.
Not box office wise,
but sorry. I think in just
audience, the people that did see it and liked it. I guess. What's your? You think?
I think the Fabelmans will win.
Okay.
Which one would I want to have win?
So that brings us back to whether or not you liked everything better the second time you saw it.
I didn't.
Okay.
Now, look, I admire the film. I think it's amazing what they've done. But I'll put it in the words of my wife. She watched it for the first time.
Okay.
About an hour and a half in, she's like, is this going anywhere? I'm like, yeah, you know what? It's kind of not for a good patch of the time. It's spectacle and it's creativity over actually taking you anywhere. And then it really tries to spend a good last 10 minutes. Well, actually the last hour is just, to me, it's very repetitive. It's very much, okay, here's the theme of the movie. Oh, okay. Now here's some cool creativity to throw in. And now here's the theme of the movie. Oh, let's get creative and funny again. And it is, I agree. It is repetitive. It is kind of draining. And, but if I had to say which one should I think should win, yeah, it should still be that film, just because it's got it's
just
the
because
most
you hate
creative
the
work of art. Well, it's just it's the best work of art.
Okay.
In these film categories. I mean, look, I like Tar. Is it Best Picture? Not really. It's a really interesting story with a really great lead performance. But is it Best Picture as an overall picture? Nah, maybe not. Is it Fabelmans? Yeah, I didn't care for it, but I know a lot of people do like it. Is it Elvis? I probably had the most fun with the Elvis movie of all the ones listed.
I need to rewatch Elvis.
Like all the ones I'm like, oh yeah, that was really cool. I enjoyed that movie quite a bit. But is it Best Picture? I don't know. Banshees of Inisherin, I came away a little disappointed in, and I don't know, man. I don't know which film I would want to have win.
Okay, fair enough.
I would be happy if Everything Everywhere All at Once won, just because I think that's a great credit to say, yes, you can make a truly inventive film and have a great mix of tones with it and styles and just make it work. And it's just creative and it's fun and it's energetic. And I like rewarding that, something with high creativity to it. So I give it for that, I guess.
Okay.
Okay, just real quickly, just hitting the actors. Actor in a leading role, we've got Austin Butler with Elvis, Colin Farrell with Banshees, Brendan Fraser with The Whale. And I think, is this the only, this and supporting actress were the only Whale nominations. Am I right in that?
I believe so.
Yeah. Brendan Fraser for The Whale, Paul Mescal for After Sun, which was kind of a surprise to see that film. A beloved film by a lot of critics and well reviewed, but didn't expect Paul to be nominated in Best Picture. And then Bill Nye with Living, a film we're going to be catching up with soon, have not seen yet. And but I had heard some buzz that's probably going to get a nomination just because he's really good in it. So I'm excited to see it.
Yeah, the surprises for me, like you mentioned, Paul Mescal. I'd seen After Sun, but such a small independent movie, kind of surprised that made it in. And Bill Nye for Living, yeah, I'd heard of the film, but like for it to be nominated for Best Actor, I was like, oh, okay.
Well, you kind of always expect the one nomination in each of these categories to kind of be like that. Okay. Either somebody who's had a huge body of work and this just happens to be their latest piece. And it's a little bit of a, let's appreciate their whole career by showcasing one of their latest works. Could be some of that. Of course, we haven't seen Living yet, so
No,
maybe
and
it's-
it got nominated for adapted screenplay as
Yeah,
well.
so it could be
Bill
good.
Nye, I think the body of work, like I like him. I think obviously a lot of people do, and I don't know that he's ever had a nomination.
I'm not sure.
But like,
Let's
I'm
get
glad.
hey, intern. Can
Yeah,
you check on
get
that
on
for
that.
us? Please research that and let us know. Thank you.
But I'm glad to see him getting recognized because he's good.
Well, actors in a leading role, we have Kate Blanchett for Tar, Anna de Armas for Blonde, which was kind of a surprise. Did not expect that
Surprise
one.
for me.
Andrea Riseborough for To Leslie. Now, this is
Even
one.
a bigger surprise.
Yeah, this is one that has created some controversy. There's actually some reviews going on right now in the Academy world to see is this nomination legit, because so it built from a grassroots kind of a online appeal to try to have Andrea nominated for this film. A lot of other actors and directors kind of making a big social media post, kind of copied and pasted from everybody else's. So everybody saying the same thing.
Kind of like how the Zack Snyder films, our
Yeah,
fans got
a
the
little
scene
bit.
of the year or whatever in the Oscars, and it was the one like the Force,
Yeah.
Force whatever
Such a random
Yeah.
scene.
from the Justice
and,
League, right?
So there are some questions the Academy saying that it can't really be like a coordinated effort like that, and I don't know. It's again, I hear the movie's good. Like I hear her performance is good,
Right.
so I'm anxious to see it. But kind of a little controversy there.
Yeah, interesting that could even happen. But I've seen of all the films that are up for Oscars this year, we're going to catch up at our Film Society. We're going to catch up with the documentary shorts and the live action shorts. And after I watch those, the only ones will need to catch up with are Living, which we're also going to catch up with, and To Leslie. And then
To
I will have
Leslie.
seen everything.
I've seen them all.
So
I think I'm at Women Talking and To Leslie and Living.
Living,
And
sure.
then I'll be caught up as well. The other two, we've got Michelle Williams for The Fablemans and Michelle Yeoh for Everything Everywhere All at Once. Chris, I think this is basically going to be is it Kate Blanchett or is it Michelle Yeoh?
Yeah, I agree.
Pretty
And
much.
See, something like that, which isn't announced that much before Best Picture, that could kind of give you an indication. It's like, okay, who may get up for director and who may get for film, because the acting with those two, I think, that'll kind of give you a sense of where the evening could go.
And I'll say this, Kate Blanchett, it was a really stellar performance. And Michelle Yeoh, I think it's a good performance, but also she had a lot to pull in that film.
Yes.
It's physical. It's acting. It's wide range of performance styles that had to happen.
And
in
I
this
think
film.
you have a little bit of the
Little bit of
not that
body of
Kate
work.
Blanchett doesn't have a huge body of work, but Michelle Yeoh body of work and that kind of thing.
Well, her role is even a little bit of a credit to her
yes.
career in a way. It kind of
It is.
alludes to it in some way as
Sure.
well. All right. When we say actress in a supporting role, Angela Bassett for Black Panther, Wakanda Forever, Hong Chow for The Whale, that was we mentioned, Carrie Condon, The Banshees of Inisherin, Jamie Lee Curtis, Everything Everywhere All at Once, and Stephanie Hsu as Everything Everywhere All at Once as well. Kind of surprised they did both. Jamie Lee Curtis was a surprise for me to see her nominated for Best Actress in a Supporting Role, but obviously it was a fun performance she got to give on that. So,
Sure.
yeah.
Yeah, I was surprised that both of them. I remember prior to the announcement, a lot of people were saying like they're going to be mad when Stephanie Hsu doesn't get nominated. And then it was funny, she did. And then a lot of people were mad that Jamie Lee Curtis, they were mad that Jamie Lee Curtis did get nominated because they thought it would take away from her.
And it does. It kind of splits the votes a little bit.
But
So,
yeah, it could.
I think Angela Bassett's going to win this.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, I do.
Okay.
She's gotten some love from some other award presentations, and
Okay.
I do think the two Everything Everywhere All at Onces are going to kind of cancel each other out. Hong Chow was a surprise for me to see here. I mean, happy.
I thought she was really
good, but I was surprised she got nominated.
Yeah.
Because I really thought The Whale was going to be just one nomination, Brendan Fraser, that's it.
Right.
And Carrie Condon, very good in Banshees of Inisherin, but I think this is going to be Angela Bassett.
Okay.
And then actor in a supporting role, Brendan Gleeson, Banshees of Inisherin. I'll go ahead and mention Barry Keoghan, also Banshees of Inisherin. Great nominations, but I also feel like they're going to cancel each other out. Brian Terry Henry for Causeway. Judd Hirsch for The Fablemans. This one, I mean, look,
It's kind of like
it's a great
Judi Dench.
Exactly.
Was
it's
it
a
Shakespeare?
very
in Love?
short
Yeah.
role, short screen time in the film.
Yeah.
He gets his one showy scene, and then he's kind of
And he's great.
He's very good in it, but And then we have Keon Kwan for Everything Everywhere All at Once. I think Keon Kwan is going to win it.
And my only request is that Harrison Ford present him with the award.
Oh my gosh, would that be amazing?
Or Steven Spielberg.
Well,
Either
it's
way.
not going to be because it has to be
I
the
know.
winner of the Best Supporting
Prior,
Actress
yeah.
from last year does it.
Absolutely.
So I think the two Inch-Sheeran nominees are going to hurt each other. I don't think enough people have seen Causeway. And I think the Fablemans, it's just, I feel a little robbed if he wins it for that couple of scenes he does.
Well, and I admit,
just-
you told me which one Best Picture, and I said Everything Everywhere. For the supporting role and for the leading role, I'm leaning, but it's more of a nostalgia like thing of I want him to win because his speech is going to be amazing.
Yeah. Well, and
And
again,
Michelle Yeoh, I think hers will also be
well,
very
just like Michelle
heartfelt and
Yeoh,
amazing.
his role was both physical and had to play in the sci-fi fantasy realm, but also had very, very human elements and very realistic emotional drama to it. And
Well,
it was a very varied performance.
And I
for
think
being worse.
everyone, including the Academy, loves a good story.
Yeah.
And his story
His
of
story's
how he
great.
started out with Spielberg and he was in Temple
I
of
agree.
Doom, and then he just basically wasn't anything for the longest time and brought back and did this and wasn't just, it's a supporting role, but he's pretty key in the
Oh, yeah,
film.
absolutely.
So
Yeah.
I think everybody loves that kind of story. So
Yeah. Last category I want to detail,
Sure.
and then we'll just get overall impressions of the rest. Not to shortchange the other nominations. Just
you're going to just do makeup and hairstyling, aren't you?
no, and no offense to them,
No,
it's a great category.
It is.
Just as far as the one I'm always the most fascinated
Sure.
by or love is the directing.
Sure.
Directing to me, I tend to look at even more than the acting or anything else writing wise. I look at the directing, and that's the one I'm probably the most invested in all the time.
Sure.
And we have 5 nominees here. We have Martin McDonagh for Banshees of Inisherin, Daniel Kwan and Daniel Scheinert for Everything Everywhere All at Once, The Fablemans with Steven Spielberg, Tar by Todd Field, and then Ruben Östlund, Triangle of Sadness. We have discussed all 5 of these films, all 5 of these directors, Chris. Which one do you want to see win? And which one do you think will win?
So, okay, when we look at the category with all the directors you just mentioned, you think of I feel like it's one of those things that the established name is probably going to get it. Yeah. And not that these people aren't established, but Todd Field, he's made other films and he's directed some TV, but I feel like Tar is a long shot. Triangle of Sadness is a long shot. Banshees of Inisherin, even though Martin McDonagh's made other films, they're not widely known. So I feel like
he did win the Golden Globe for Best Director.
Okay, interesting.
Oh, no, he didn't. I'm sorry. He won it for writing and he won Best Picture, but Steven Spielberg got Best Director.
Okay. So
No.
I don't know.
Which was it?
I don't follow the Globes. I don't know.
Okay, forget everything I just said. I think I was completely wrong. Sorry, go right ahead.
I feel like it's probably between Everything Everywhere and The Fablemans, but I feel like really a lot of people aren't going to care for Everything Everywhere just because it is so all over the place. Your wife saying, yeah, what does this mean? Is it going anywhere? Whereas The Fablemans is more of I think director would tend to go more towards a traditional, showing the skills of somebody who's tried and true, who's made so many different movies. So
See, I tend to always want it to be where Best Picture is best overall general picture, but director is show me some real craft in directing this film.
So you're saying
yes.
Spielberg has no craft?
No, I'm saying it's Spielberg's craft, but I've seen his craft. It's Spielberg.
Sure.
Everything Everywhere All at Once is still creative. I would be happy if that film wasn't going to win Best Picture.
Okay.
But these guys got Best Director.
Okay.
Because I do think
I'll be happy.
this
if
is
they're
a
Best-
directing accomplishment to make that film work.
Got you.
So, but I do think it's going to be between those two. I agree with you on that.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I think you may get a sense early in the evening because they do supporting early. When those supporting awards are announced, if everything takes both of those, that could be like okay.
Yeah.
So we'll see.
I'll be curious. I kind of hope that there's not one film that just dominates with
Sure.
the stuff. Like I always like it when it's like
Split out
it's
everywhere.
a different director than Best Picture, and the acting categories come from different movies, and that's always fun for me. It just means share the love a little bit with all the films. I hate it being just a runaway. Okay, well, yeah, this film won all the main categories. I don't think that's going to happen this year.
And
I don't think there's one film that's like going to just run away.
Run
with
away.
it all. Yeah.
And we are going to have an Oscar party for our Foot Candle members, and Alan and I will fill out a ballot. And we can't be in the running for whoever wins the Oscar pool thing for our society. But Alan, we're saying here on the air that between you and I, whoever loses between you and I,
Whoever has the least number of correct picks for the Oscar nomination
has to watch 80 for Brady as punishment.
80 for Brady.
Yes.
That is the film neither Chris or I have any desire to want to see.
Absolutely
And
not.
it is no fault. Look, no fault of the actresses involved.
No.
It's the tie-in to the NFL, playing off of Tom Brady, playing off his retirement timing.
Yeah.
Just looks very, very, doesn't look like a fun film.
No.
Although I do think the four leading ladies are all extremely talented. I love all their work in other films, but it doesn't look good to me.
No.
So we have already said whoever loses will have to watch it and review back on the show what we thought about it.
Have to report back. Yeah, it's
Report
the 80
back.
for Brady bet is what we're
All right.
doing.
That's what we're going to do. Well, Chris, real quick, are there other omissions? Overall, there's a lot of other nominations we're not going to touch on.
Sure.
Are there films that you feel like got completely overlooked or you were disappointed, didn't even really show up or as much as you expected them to?
So there are 3 films that didn't show up at all,
Okay.
which are, what they call shutouts of the Oscars, which all surprised me. And I will do in level of surprise.
Okay.
Decision to Leave not being put up for international feature film really, really surprised me. A, there'd been a lot of buzz about it. B, I saw it and actually really liked it. So I was just surprised that Decision to Leave wasn't even nominated. So that was a surprise. Next up comes The Woman King, which a lot of people were surprised. Viola Davis didn't get a Best Actress nomination for it. There's some supporting acting in there that's also really strong. I was just surprised that didn't get anything. But the number one shock, and this also disappointment that it didn't get anything, is Nope. I was really... when it came to nominations, people said Nope. And that really disappointed me because... would I expect Nope to be nominated for Best Picture? Well, if you're going to put Top Gun Maverick and Avatar in there, yes, I feel like that's more deserving than either one of those. But and Jordan Peele, he's gotten recognition before. So it's not like, but just for it not to get anything, something as simple as we didn't touch on these categories, but sound and visual effects, I can't believe it didn't get anything.
No,
for
look,
those.
I would be so pleased if Avatar was replaced with Nope. That one makes the most sense to me. That is the film. If you're going to go 10 selections,
sure,
that should have been the 10th. Not that I thought it was going to win.
Right.
But I think the
Fair
nomination-wise, it deserved that spot instead of Avatar. So
fair enough.
Yeah. Sorry, I've been coughing this whole time. I don't really have any other surprises. You hit them right. Nope was the big kind of a little surprising to me. Decision to Leave, I have not seen, so I can't really attest to it, but I know it was well regarded and expected to be in that list, so I'm kind of surprised it wasn't. I mean, there were even talks earlier in the year of it being on the Best Picture nomination list. So
right.
The fact that it didn't get anything was really
kind of surprising.
All right, well, we have some interesting nominations out there. I think it's going to be an interesting ceremony. I think there's going to be some fair amount of drama to see which films really walk away with this.
But slap-free drama.
Hopefully slap-free. Because, I can't really say with certainty which film would. Look, Top Gun Maverick could walk away with Best Picture. I'm just saying it could happen.
Anything is possible.
I think 4 or 5 films out of the 10 have a legit probability of winning this thing. So that always kind of makes it kind of fun. Sure. I just want to see Chris's face if Top Gun Maverick gets named Best Picture. I will be at the table where you are. I don't just go ahead and be prepared. My head whip is going to be so fast to whip
Right.
around to see your reaction.
And the only
if
thing that would
comes out
make
of there
it
now.
worse than Top Gun Maverick winning Best Picture is if Top Gun Maverick is the thing that makes me lose the 80 for Brady bet.
Oh my gosh, how funny would that be?
That would devastate
You
me.
lose by one,
And it's because
Top Gun Maverick. Pete Mitchell, Top Gun Maverick, causes you to see 80 for Brady
Yep.
and me to win.
I will hold it against Tom Cruise.
that is. I am prepping for this now. I'll be disappointed if that's not what happens on Oscar night. Okay.
Fair enough.
Chris, we have gone really long, but I
Yes.
know we've got some recommendations to give. This is our last little segment of the show.
I was going to do real brief. And if you want to skip these quick little spoilers, just skip ahead to where we're giving recommendations.
Oh, you want to do the spoilers now?
Yeah, I
and
was
then we'll
gonna
do the
go- yeah.
recommendation. Okay, all right, that's fine. All right, so we are going to do bonus section here. If you want to get to the recommendations, skip ahead a little bit.
Yep.
Chris and I are just going to do very, very quick little brief spoilery comments on the 3 films that we reviewed earlier in the show. And again, that was Knock at the Cabin, Tar, and Triangle of Sadness. Okay, Chris, so let's talk Knock at the Cabin first.
Gotcha.
What do you have to say about that? This is spoiler.
So this is
Spoiler territory, everybody.
So-
Knock at the Cabin. What do you got?
So, Knock at the Cabin. The ending is that Ben Aldridge makes the choice to kill his partner,
Yeah.
and then ends
From the extreme pleading of his partner to do it, because
Right.
they have kind of bought into this idea that yes, we do believe our decision to have to kill somebody is
Gonna save the world.
Is going to save the world.
So in the book, that does happen, and that the world is saved. However, what is different is in the book when the Ben Aldridge character runs out to the car to get his gun.
Yeah.
Wen goes outside as well, and something happens where she ends up getting shot and she dies. So at that point in the film, the rest of the film takes place and it's just these 2 guys. And they, So actually, you know what? So that takes place, and I'm thinking at the end of the film, they decide not to. I don't think they killed one another. They just let the world burn.
They just let it burn.
Right.
So it's more this idea of this world took away
Our daughter.
this
And so
thing
because
that
of that-
we worked as a symbol of our love for each other. We're just saying, screw the rest of the world.
Right.
We're out of here.
So still really bleak,
Oh, yeah.
but maybe not as, I guess.
No, actually, it's more bleak.
Shyamalan's is less bleak.
Less bleak
yeah.
because Shyamalan's actually ends in even though they killed the guy's partner,
Right.
they saved, quote,
They saved
saved the rest of
humanity.
the world.
Right.
So yeah, it ended on a little more upbeat, a little more positive.
Yeah, still pretty bleak.
The big thing for me, the problem with that film for me is I still, if you're going to hinge so much on this idea that, okay, we have to convince these 3 people that they have to sacrifice one of them.
Right.
I just need a better logistic. I need a better understanding of why these 3. And there was a throwaway line that Dave Bautista's character did at one point. It's like, even in the middle of a struggle, it's like, it has to be one of you guys because your love is so pure for one another. I'm
Yeah.
like, all right, no. Either leave it so completely mysterious that I don't understand that we're not supposed to know anything, or give me something better than that.
And I felt it was a shortcoming of the film too, where it kind of throws in where Jonathan Groff's character is like saying, "Oh yes, he's magically figuring out that each one of them represents a horseman of the apocalypse." I'm just like, no, this is garbage. So that kind of just really took it down. Yeah. So okay, so that's that's Knock at the Cabin.
Knock at the Cabin.
The differences in the book.
Okay, fair enough. I kind of like the book's ending better because it's actually saying something.
Right.
It's like, all right, we care so much about this daughter and this symbol of our love that we work
And
so
if
hard.
this world takes it away from us,
we're just
then
like,
just
screw
let
it.
this
We're
world
out.
burn.
Let it burn. And that at least was saying something.
I think if I read that, I know the child dies in the book. I think I'm remembering the end of the book correctly
Wow.
from the
Okay.
synopsis. But
well, even if you're wrong, that should have been the ending. Yeah,
so that's Knock at the Cabin. Okay,
Okay.
so moving on to Tar.
Yes.
Alan, why don't you explain the final scene in Tar and how it just really sealed the fact that you
this
liked
is
the
so
movie?
great. So basically, the whole movie, we're learning that Lydia Tarr, some of her transgressions are coming to light.
Mm-hmm.
She's having allegations against her for grooming assistants and having relationships with assistants and people with her, and that she ends up kind of hurting their careers, or they don't excel because of the relationships she has with them. Berating students and having very verbal attacks on some of her students. All that starting to kind of bubble up. Then she has a former assistant that you find out committed suicide, and they're insinuating that it has to do with Tar's behavior and her actions and lack of actions towards her that caused that. Anyway, she basically gets she gets fired from her job with the German Symphony, and she's basically shunned from work.
Yes.
Her PR agent's firm comes in and says, we kind of need to distance you from all this. So you see her going to Thailand, and it's really playing it up like she is going to be the head of some big symphony in Thailand, because she's meeting with the Thai officials. She's being greeted. She's rehearsing with the symphony. And you're like, okay, so she's just going to kind of build her career up here before she can come back mainland. But the last scene of the film is you see her walking out to this big performance, the final performance in the movie, with this Thai orchestra that she's now conducting. And as you pan out from the stage, you realize that she's at a video game unveiling ceremony where they're rolling out a new version of Dragon Age or some other popular video game, where she's basically conducting the score for this video game. And she's in an audience filled with people in cosplay, which again, the joke is that, they definitely removed her from the mainland world and to try to rehabilitate her, but they're having to do it from what they would consider to be bottom barrel. Now, I'm not saying video game composing is not a skill and a craft, but based on where she was to where she is now, it is quite the fall. And it was humorous the way the camera works to pull out and show you this. So anyway, I love it.
Yeah, that was a good cap to the film. The film overall was lukewarm on, but the ending was
because again, when you see her walking out onto that stage, you're like, okay, so she's now starting over with a new symphony in Thailand. You don't realize that. No, it's not even just a new symphony. It is a whole new thing she's having to do just to kind of crawl back up to the area where she was. And I thought the film did a really masterful job of not giving you anything more you need to know about that ending until the last possible moment. So.
Sure. Then with Triangle of Sadness, the last scene, they determine the two characters run off to try to find like food or to try to find something on the island. I don't remember what they were going to look for.
I don't remember either.
But they're just kind of going out on a scouting mission, and because they've been marooned on this island. And what they end up finding out is that on the other side of the island, it's actually there's a resort there, and they're basically saved and haven't been all by themselves the whole time. And the people that are there is somebody that used to work on the cleaning crew and on the boat that they got shipwrecked from, and then one of the models. And the very last shot is the cleaning lady has picked up, because she was the one that was dominant on the island, and now the model girl's like, oh yes, and kind of thinking like, we can just return back to normal, we're saved and everything. And you see the model pick up a huge rock, or not the model, but the cleaning woman pick up, Abigail is her name, pick up a huge rock, and you see her coming up behind the model, and then they just cut to black. So
they cut to black, and then you have a quick little flash shot of the boyfriend running through the jungle at top speed. Don't know why. So look, I love the ambiguousness of it. I love not showing me did
Abigail,
did the house cleaner, actually kill the model to keep the secret so that the rest of the crowd doesn't know that they're on the same island as a resort and can be easily saved. You don't know if the boyfriend's running through the jungle because he's now realizing, oh, hey, Abigail's probably going to try to hurt my girlfriend because of finding this out. We don't know. And I like all that to it. So I'm actually good with the ending of Triangle of Sadness. I think I like the ambiguousness. I like the cut to black and not knowing one way or another. But you totally see why Abigail would be driven to the kind of the possibility of what she's about to do.
Sure.
Well, and even so, it's like you didn't mention too, the last thing that the model even says to Abigail with her back turned to her is like, oh, well, we could find you a job, get you a job when we get back to the mainland.
Right.
Which you could either take as I think she's actually going to like look out for me when we get there, or kind of this condescending, we'll find you a job and you'll just go back to being a house cleaner, but we'll get you a job somewhere.
Right.
So either way, it's those actions just driving that final shot. And I like the ending of Triangle of Sadness.
Okay.
I think it was good.
Cool.
Overall, I'm really happy with 2 of the 3 endings that we just spoiled. Knock at the Cabin, yeah. Now you've told me the book ending, if that's truly it, I like that so much better.
I like that better.
Yeah,
Fair enough.
so much. Okay, we are done with spoilers.
Yes.
Chris, I'm going to ask a favor of you on the recommendations.
Yes.
Let's go very quick.
Yep.
We got short little time.
Sure.
We've kept people's attention long enough on this.
Sure.
This is our recommendation segment. We like to kind of just recommend a film that we think is worth checking out. And Chris, always looking forward to see what you recommend. What do you want to recommend for us as something to check out in your free time?
It's a 2022 film that's streaming on Hulu, and I think it was released directly to Hulu. It's called Rosaline, and it's basically a comedy that's a twist on the Romeo and Juliet story. Caitlin Dever plays Rosaline, and she is kind of she comes in and she was originally in love with Romeo, and then Romeo, guess what, disses her and goes with Juliet, and it's kind of her feeling left out, and it's a comedy, and I really like some of the twists and turns they do with it, and just clever. So, and it's streaming on Hulu. So that's my recommendation, Rosaline.
Okay, good deal. Not familiar with it. That's a new one on me. Add it to my list. Thank you once again. See, Chris Fry, you're the reason my watch list gets so long and I don't not get to it because you recommend too many good films. My recommendations, I'm taking a cheap, easy way out, and it will also be super quick.
Okay.
I'm going to recommend a couple of films that one of them nominated for Best Picture. It is streaming because I've seen it and I do want to recommend it. I think too many people are sleeping on it because I just don't think they realize it's there.
It's recommended for Best Picture this year.
Yeah.
Okay.
It is All Quiet on the Western Front.
Okay.
That is a phenomenal film. I do think it was an expertly made war film. It has been way too long since I've seen the original older version of the film to really be able to compare the two. And I don't even think that's an exercise you need to do. Just know that this is really, really well made. I look back to the Sam Mendes film, 1917, which I thought was fine. Just didn't love. I mean, I thought it was okay, but this film to me, this is what a true gritty war film needs to be. And I think it just hits all the right buttons. So I'm not saying it's going to win Best Picture.
Will it win international?
Oh yeah, it definitely could win international.
Okay.
And it's on Netflix. And again, I just don't think Netflix is doing a very good job of letting people know it's there.
No.
So
I think they kind of
please go see this. If you like really good, well-made war films with a true emotional resonance to it, this will work for you. I think it's really good.
I'll second that recommendation.
Yeah,
So,
it's good. Surprisingly good. Did not expect it when I saw Netflix was releasing a new version of it. I'm like, okay. And then to see it, it's like, wow, no, this is good. Second one, I'm going to recommend Glass Onion. And that is one that also got snubbed out of all the Oscars as well. I mean, not that I was really surprised.
it did get adapted screenplay.
Oh, adapted screenplay. Okay. And I'll give it for that. I was typically a little down on Knives Out just because I wanted a more traditional mystery.
Okay.
And I was a little disappointed that it kind of tried to swerve away from that more traditional mystery about halfway through the film. And it kind of just lost me a little bit. It wasn't really something I could have figured out or tried to like really piece together, which is what I was hoping for with what Ryan Johnson was trying to bring together with a more traditional murder mystery film. Glass Onion to me is closer to what I wanted.
Okay.
And I liked it quite a bit better than I did in Knives Out.
I think it goes for a lot more laughs than I remember Knives Out going for.
It does. It definitely
Seems a
had
lot
more
funnier, I guess.
A little lighter in its tone. But I will say, I think it had one of my favorite moments of film this year.
Okay.
And again, I will not spoil this, but I should say that there's a buildup in the first 30, 45 minutes of this film to what's going to happen. It's leading you to believe that this is all going to be hinging on this one event.
Yes.
And Daniel Craig as Bennett Block kind of spoils it like halfway through the film, like not even halfway through the film. And you find yourself as an audience member almost exactly like we find the character played
Miles
by
Braun.
Yes.
Ed Norton.
Ed Norton character in this film. You find yourself just kind of deflated. What happens like, but it's funny and it's great the way it was done. And it's a nice turn. Actually, this film had two really good turns in it. That would being one, which was a lot more playful and fun. Then there was a turn with a character, which I honestly did not expect and see, and that gave me the kind of thrill I needed in a mystery movie like this, where I'm like, okay, now I'm on board. You got me. This is good. And so I did enjoy Glass Onion quite a bit.
I will say that I hope, for this reason alone, there's some dialogue where Birdie J, played by Kate Hudson, says, "I'm a truth teller. Some people can't handle it." And Benoit Blanc, played by what's the dude? Daniel Craig. Thank you. Responds back very, subtly. It's a dangerous thing to mistake speaking without thought for speaking the truth.
Yeah.
Those lines right there, that is like some of the best dialogue, like moment.
That's good.
From film in 2022. I want that to win adapted screenplay.
Yeah.
So that's me on a soapbox.
No, it is fun. It is a good movie. It is better than I expected it to be, given my relative disappointment with Knives Out. This one worked for me. This was great. So Glass Onion, a Knives Out mystery. I hate that they have that tagline on it. Just call it Glass Onion and that's it.
Sure.
And I was kind of wondering if it was going to get a needle drop with Glass Onion in the movie, and yep, it does.
Right.
And it's great. And I love it. So all good. That's our show. Chris, what was your recommendation again?
Mine was Rosaline.
Rosaline.
Yes.
Then I gave a quick little duo of All Quiet on the Western Front on Netflix and Glass Onion also on Netflix. So fire back up your Netflix subscription if you're somebody that's kicked it off in the last few months because you didn't find enough good on there. Get it for 1 month, watch the 2 films, then you can shut it back off again after that.
There you go.
All right, we had our reviews of Knock at the Cabin, Tar, and Triangle of Sadness, as well as our Oscar general discussion about the nominations that were just announced. Chris, anybody who wants to follow up with us, join in the conversation, how do you recommend they do that?
You can send us an email at info@footcandle.org. You can follow us on Twitter @footcandlefilm. Alan and I are both on Letterboxd, where we try to track what we're seeing. Do us a favor. If you like the show, give us a star rating, write a review, share with friends on whatever service you receive your favorite podcast on to help us reach new listeners. We'd appreciate it. Last but not least, keep in mind, Foot Candle Film Festival for 2023 will be September 18th through the 24th. So consider checking that out.
All right. Thanks, everybody, for listening to Foot Candle Films here on the Mesh.tv. We will be back with you in a couple of weeks with some more movie reviews, movie discussions, and movie recommendations. Thanks, everyone. Take care. We'll talk to you next time.
See you in the ticket line.
Watch films in the company of like-minded people in the dark. Watch films in the underground. We won't let anyone know where you are. The films that don't make it to Carmike at the mall, or ones that were famous when Grandpa would watch films out of the reverence of the heritage of an art. Watch films through the courtesy of Foot Candle Film Society.
Special thanks to Carpal Tuller for the show theme music. For more about Carpal Tuller, visit www.carpaltuller.com. You've been listening to The Mesh, an online media network of shows and programs ranging from business to arts, sports to entertainment, music to community. All programs are available on the website as well as through iTunes and YouTube. Check us out online at themesh.tv. Discover other network shows and give us feedback on what you just heard.